Young Earth creationists might be my second favourite religiouses, after the Mormons obviously, with all their really sensible ideas that all this was made in 6 literal days. And there's only one creationist worth any salt in this town, and he goes by the name Hovind. No, not that one. Eric Hovind. 5 minutes to destroy evolution, huh, Eric? I'd love to believe you, but we all know how good you are with numbers.
16 times 2? 34.
Hello, I'm the Skeptic, the British floating circle that watches people make extraordinary claims and then I explain why I don't accept what they're saying. Creationists have some hilarious takes on how all this came to be, and they think that by taking down evolution, they're God's proved. They've been trying for decades and haven't got anywhere. But today could be the day. Eric Hovind, son of this guy, speaks to John Harris from Living Waters Europe, which I can only presume is something to do with this guy. I'm sorry in advance. This is a whole lot of what the did I just watch? Though before we discover how to destroy the most supported scientific theory, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell, and maybe we can destroy the algorithm too. And a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in some recent videos. Wild Videos and John Gavin. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows leaves upon you. More hen. Like basic maths.
16 times 2? 34.
Eric is going to destroy evolution. Let's do this.
So how do you destroy evolution in 5 minutes or less? Guys, you are in for a great conversation today on the Creation Today show. I'm your host, Eric Hovind, and joining me is the director of Living Waters Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. John Harris.
Yeah, welcome, John. But Eric, I know numbers aren't your strong suit.
16 times 2? 34.
But if you're going to destroy evolution in 5 minutes or less, why is this video 41 minutes long?
John, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, it's fantastic to be here, Eric. I'm doing very well. It's great to see you.
Look, I can only apologise. Living Waters Europe? I'm European. New Zealander Ray Comfort created Living Waters. I'm 1/4 Kiwi on my mother's side. Ray Comfort lives in the USA. I now live in the USA. I feel like this is all my fault.
I am so thankful to finally be having a great conversation with you like this one. I first heard about this argument that you're going to present that is, I mean, that explosion, Kent, maybe you should have done an atomic bomb more than just a little bit. This argument that you're going to present is absolutely destructive to it's a nuclear bomb to the evolutionary idea, isn't it?
That's absolutely true, Eric. There's absolutely no recovering from this. If you take this to someone who tells you evolution is a fact, they're going to be shocked because there is nothing they can do. Most of the time when I've spoken to people about this, they go completely silent.
Wow, this is groundbreaking stuff. I bet that Nobel Prize is just around the corner then. I can't wait to be silenced. Not that I'm an expert when it comes to evolution. I just don't see any reason for a god to have done it. Wait, unless people are just silenced because they can't believe the stupidity they're hearing.
For a long time, because they realize they have no argument against it. So it's going to be fantastic. I really can't wait.
Well, the Bible tells us to cast down arguments that exalt themselves against the knowledge of God. And guys, that's exactly what John is going to do today.
I don't care what the Bible says. Until you can prove it to be the word of a god, I don't give a crap. Just get to the 5 minutes of evolution debunking, please.
He's presenting an argument, and if I understand this correctly, you do kind of want to set up the argument for people before you give them the little 5-minute version, right?
That's right. If I just prepare it a little bit so that people understand where the argument is coming from, the whole thing would make much more sense, and you'd be more confident in sharing the actual the truth with people.
And really, that's the point. We don't want you guys to just simply hear the argument. We want you to know the science behind it and the argument so that you can present this. So to my skeptic friends that are watching.
Wait, he knows I'm watching? Me? Oh, I feel so special.
I am, first of all, thank you. I'm so glad you're actually checking out the other side and finding out exactly what we're saying or what some of the arguments are. There's a lot of people that close their eyes to these arguments or they dismiss them. I just want you to know we're going to do the best we can to cover as much as we can. And then in the second half of this show with our partners, John, you're going to go through every single thing you've ever heard as an objection to this argument, and you go through all of the so-called objections and show how they don't work. Is that correct?
I'm going to go through everything plus more. And if there are some questions coming up, I'm happy to answer those too. But I don't think you'll find that I've missed anything. You'll find that all the questions have been answered and dealt with.
I hope these fellas have some cooking apparatus, because this is a whole lot of waffle. Get to it, dudes.
You're the director of Living Waters Europe, which means, like Ray Comfort here in America, you're over there in Europe doing lots and lots of evangelism, and you've used this argument before. How has it worked?
Oh, every single time. It's been deadly. In fact, I'm going to show you a video at the end, which unfortunately won't make it in the first half. It'll happen afterwards, where I've actually done it and I've left people speechless. I've had people who said things like, you know what, this is so incredible, I'm going to go to church because of this.
Maybe tell more people. Church attendance numbers are going down across the USA and Europe.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Introduce this subject. I don't want to waste time. I want to get right into this. Introduce this subject. What do we need to know before we hear the argument? And then let's hear that argument.
Finally.
Absolutely. This is fantastic. I'm so excited to be introducing this. This is about time we as Christians actually know this thing so that we can use it everywhere we go. So today's topic is about Haldanes Dilemma. So what is Haldanes Dilemma? Well, Haldanes Dilemma literally destroys evolution in 5 minutes. I'm not exaggerating, and it is irrefutable.
But you're also not explaining what Haldanes Dilemma is either. Just saying what you think it does isn't an explanation. Treat me like the big dumb I am and explain it to me.
How does it work and how can we use it? I'm going to go fairly fast with this because I'm condensing a 1 hour topic into 30 minutes, actually 20 minutes, 22, 23 minutes. So here it comes. So here's a quick introduction. This dilemma was brought up by a very famous British scientist. His name was John Burdon Sanderson Haldane, but they nicknamed him Jack. I have no idea why, or JBS. He was an evolutionist himself. This is what happened after they discovered that the DNA molecule exists in the form of a three-dimensional double helix in 1953. Haldane did some simple calculations a few years later and found that humans couldn't have possibly evolved from ape-like creatures.
Wait, ape-like? Hang on. They do get it. We've come a long way from my grandpa isn't a monkey.
There just wasn't enough time. So how did he do it? Well, he took everything into account. I don't have time to go through this, but if you want me to later, I can. And he found out in his calculations that his calculations directly conflicted with the theory of evolution. This became known as Haldanes Dilemma, and this dilemma was never resolved, and it's been going on since 1957.
But hang on, it has apparently been resolved. But I guess I should at least let you say some more before I point out the one thing that puts Haldanes Dilemma into the sleepy little shed it deserves to be in.
So you'd think we'll know about this by now. But of course, some evolutionists go around saying that this dilemma was resolved even though it wasn't. But those who say it don't really understand the dilemma, nor do they understand the solution. This is what they do.
Oh, hang on. You think you have a better understanding than scientists? Who are you, John? I can't find any science background on your LinkedIn, just that you owned your own software company. So I think I'll stick with the majority of folks that actually trained in it. Yeah, appealing to authority. Naughty skeptic.
The moment you talk to somebody, they go where? They go on Wikipedia, and they just repeat what it says.
Nah, Reddit, mate.
And it turns out the solution they say they have, which is on their Wikipedia, is worse than the dilemma itself.
So the dilemma is terrible, but you're using it anyway, despite it supposedly opening a gaping hole in evolution? Right.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. If what they're telling me is true and they take it at face value, then they destroyed evolution again. So it just backfires on them all the way. We're going to talk about this later on as I take you through the refutation. But first, to appreciate the seriousness of this dilemma, we'll have to go all the way back to the time of Darwin. In Darwin's days, when he wrote about the origin of species, he didn't know the complexity of a cell. I don't need to tell you that, Eric. He thought a cell is made of a microscopic lump of jelly-like substance, entirely destitute of texture, destitute of organs, formless lump of albuminous matter, and with no trace of organization. Basically, he thought the cell is textureless, organless, formless, jelly-like material that has no organization.
Whoa, hang on now. Did Darwin say that? You've got that you took the quote from this guy when he was writing about Darwin. And good old Mickey is a supporter of intelligent design. You can't use your things that make claims to prove other claims. Why am I surprised? Believers do that with this book all the time. Now, I can't accept anything you say if you're going to be that dishonest, me old mucker.
Here we are, fast forwarding 150 years later, and this is what we discover. Here is a simple diagram of a cell.
No, mate. Here is a simple diagram of a cell.
And it turns out this is what this formless, textureless lump of jelly-like substance really looks like. I've got this big printout that I take with me when I'm doing this in person to show people, and it baffles them. It's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing that people don't just read what it says and accept what you tell them, especially when the info is right there. You got this from a healthcare provider. What on earth does that have to do with single cells and evolution?
This is more complicated than a television circuit diagram if you've ever seen one. We don't even know everything about the cell yet. So much for Darwin's jelly-like substance with no trace of organization.
Not that I agree with what he said, but now you accept what Darwin had to say so that you can use what this dilemma says to debunk it. This is becoming some weird web where you all suddenly accept something that science says only to say nuh-uh to something else. It's like 16 times 2 being
34.
I think it's clear we should not be getting science lessons from Charles Darwin.
I think it just demonstrates that pseudoscientists really don't have a clue what they're talking about, and so just make stuff up instead.
Interrupt me anytime you want, Eric.
This is good. This is good.
Yeah. So it turns out in the nucleus of every cell, there is this most fascinating, sophisticated database system that we have ever seen anywhere. We call it DNA. DNA is organized in long structures like chromosomes. Humans have 46 of them. That's 23 pairs from each parent in each cell. Here you see it under a light microscope. This is under an electron microscope. Here is one zoomed in. I mean, this is impressive, but we haven't even touched the surface. So I'm going to do this really quick because normally I take a little bit more time explaining this, but let me show you how DNA works.
If you could. So far, we've only had what a believer made up, what Charles Darwin said about cells. And then you just showed some cool things on a screen. And since we're trying to get to the good stuff, I'm going to skip this bit where he points out things on the screen and explains them and just get to the reason we're here. And you know he said that because things are complex, it must be a god. Yawn.
This isn't even the argument that you're going to cover. This is something else that's mind-blowing, and it's not even this other mind-blowing argument.
And 100%. Now, Bill Gates said in his book, DNA is like a computer, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. Now, no one would believe that a computer is made by accident, right? But we go around telling our students what? That DNA came about by random chance processes. It's just embarrassing. It really is.
What's embarrassing is going, I don't understand how this came to be, and then just making up a being to explain it. Unless you're saying it was Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, leave be upon her. Yeah, she may have pooped the universe into existence, but DNA actually comes from rainbow deity saliva. DNA strands are so long. And why? Obviously, because giraffe tongues are so long. Duh!
If each one of these DNA strands inside each one of these cells of our cells were to be unwound and they would be literally 5 or 6 feet long each.
Giraffe tongue.
So let's start. Who was Haldane and what did he say? Well, Haldane was a famous scientist. He was a British-born Indian scientist known for his work in the study of physiology, genetics, evolutionary biology, and mathematics, where he made innovation contributions to the field of statistics and biostatistics. Let me summarize this for you in case you didn't get it. Haldane was a clever guy. I think that's he's certainly clever than me, all right? And I'm happy to admit that, okay? So, and even though he was the one who discovered this dilemma, which completely destroys evolution, as far as I know, he still died as an evolutionist.
Wow. I wish they'd stop saying that. Just say someone who accepts evolution.
Unbelievable. In fact, he was a socialist, Marxist, atheist, and humanist. So I can honestly tell you he wasn't a Christian.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's probably why he held on to evolution. If you want, and that's what happens all the time, we've discovered this, if you want to believe a particular worldview, you will find a reason to believe that.
What? No way. Who does that?
But this guy goes as far as possible you can imagine from Christianity. He's literally the opposite of everything a Christian stands for, right?
Yeah.
But John Haldane was so clever, other evolutionists said that he was perhaps the most brilliant science popularizer of his generation. Some even said he's the cleverest man I ever knew. So there you have it. If nothing else, this guy was smart. They're all happy to declare this, right? So evolutionists can't say this guy wasn't clever enough.
And other clever clogs have said some things that have been proven not to be true. So what?
Now, according to Theodosius, there you go, I could do this, Dobzhansky, he was very well known himself as a Ukrainian-American geneticist and evolutionary biologist. He said Haldane was always recognized as a singular case. Now, singular means he was exceptionally good. He was just great. And Michael J.D. White, who was a zoologist and cytologist, by the way, cytologist is not Scientologist. Cytology is the branch of biology. He said that Haldane was the most erudite biologist. Now, erudite means that he was like great, with great knowledge. He was the most erudite biologist of his generation and perhaps of this century. I think we're making the point here. It's very clear.
Or maybe he was a singular case because no one else really thought his hypothesis held any merit, especially when Motoo Kimmura resolved the dilemma with some neutral molecular evolution stuff, which I do not understand.
Haldane was clever, he was smart, he was intelligent, and it makes sense for evolutionists to really pay attention to what this guy is saying. Agreed? I think so.
So someone should be listened to because they're clever and they offer something that you can use to confirm some of your biases on a subject. But when someone who could be equally as smart explains why something can't be, it's all wrong. I got it.
So what was this dilemma that he was talking about? Well, to make this easy for me and for you, I'm going to read some bits from this book called The Biotic Message, which explains it all. If you want to know more information, you can get this book and read it for yourself, but it's a bit technical. But I don't want you to worry. I'm going to explain everything along the way. Afterwards, I'm going to graphically show you how it fits all together.
Ew, no. Please don't.
So in the 1950s, the evolutionary geneticist J.B.S. Haldane calculated the maximum rate of genetic change due to differential survival. He reluctantly, by the way, concluded there is a serious problem here, now known as Haldanes Dilemma. His calculations show that many species of higher vertebrate could not plausibly evolve in the available time. Evolution requires the substitution of old prevalent traits with new rare traits. There are limits to the rate these substitutions can occur, limits that depend primarily on the reproduction capacity of the species. Haldane's Dilemma examines these limits.
Yeah, and Motoo Kimmura showed that a large portion of the genome evolves independently of natural selection, and that mutations occur way more frequently than Haldane suggested, throwing his maths completely out. So Haldane may have enjoyed a good 12 years until Kimmura went, nah, mate, that sounds silly.
Here's an example from this book, same book. Imagine a breeding population of 100,000 individuals. Imagine 99,998 have the old trait O, and 2, a male and a female, have the new trait N. So old trait O, new trait N. Imagine trait N has just arisen from O by beneficial mutation. The evolutionary goal is to substitute trait N for trait O in the population. To accomplish this goal, differential survival must eliminate the 99,998 type O individuals and all their heirs. So what is it saying? It's saying that if you have a mutation in a population and it just happens to be a good one, just by coincidence, then the couple who had the good mutation must outlive all the other people in that population. No big deal.
Come on now, you don't think that animal couples of old were monogamous and have only one offspring, right? Especially if a beneficial mutation arose in a male of a species. If they have a genetic advantage, they're going to appear very appealing to the females of the species, or just force themselves upon them, and spread that seed very fast, my guy.
It makes sense if you want to keep the good mutations in the population. So how is it going to do that? Well, this can be accomplished in a single generation if there is perfect selection. That is, if the survival values of O and N, that's the old and the new trait, are 0 and 1. 0 means it's not going to continue, and 1 means it's perfect selection. It's going to keep going and be part of the population. Yet there is an enormous cost involved. For every surviving type N, that's the new trait, individual, there are 49,999 individuals type O. That must perish without heirs.
Yeah, mate, it's not how sex works.
The population size must be regenerated from the 2 survivors. It makes sense. Basically, when there is a new beneficial trait, the individual or the couple with this new beneficial trait must survive over all the others.
or pass it on many times before they do perish.
Who don't have the beneficial mutation, clearly. Now, everything should hopefully be clear so far. But if not, don't worry.
Clear that you think that our ape-like ancestors lived like the God-fearing folks of today? Well, maybe they did, because non-believers are the ones that are less likely to sleep around, according to some research.
So make sure you're paying attention to this bit, because it's where it's all happening. It goes on to say, let us assume evolution can happen like this continuously, generation after generation, for millions of years. Wow, that's a big assumption anyway. But let's take it. Take a species like man with a nominal 20 years generation time. Extrapolate backward from this known species to a time 10 million years ago. This is 3 times earlier than the said occurrence of the 4-foot-high Australopithecine Lucy. So he's saying, let's pretend the human generation is 20 years and an evolution happened over 10 million years ago, which, by the way, is 3 times older than Lucy, who is supposedly one of our early human ancestors. Now, by the way, the author of this book, you'll be pleased to know, is Walter Remain, and he's a young Earth creationist. And he's being extra generous here because he's giving the evolutionists plenty more time than they have. That's how confident that he is about this dilemma.
Hang on, 20 years? Human males hit puberty younger than that, and who's to say our ape-like ancestors had to wait that long too? And like I've already said, those that had a trait that benefits and changes stuff could pass on a lot in their lifetime. Imagine one ancestor has a trait and has 8 to 10 offspring that also have that trait, and each of those has 8 to 10 offspring. That's a fast turnaround, you spanner.
He's so confident that he's happy to give them 3 times more years than they have because he knows it's not going to help them. And that's what I do everywhere I go when I'm presenting this to the evolutionists. I literally change all the figures in their favor because I know there's going to be no hope.
But there is, because, look, here we are. And you know what? I think we can call it there, because I watched more of the video and it's just rehashing all of this but saying our 5 minutes starts now. And if you start off with a lie, the rest of it can't really be that believable, can it? Great job, fellas. You didn't really leave me speechless, but you did give me some new stuff to read from Motoo Kimmura, so thanks. You can watch the full 41 minutes and 22 seconds if you so desire. The link is in the description. I'm going to skeptic this as evolution not being even remotely destroyed. A big thank you to this month's top-level ticks on Patreon. Dark Ether Piao, Tamo, The Barely Bearable Atheist, George, Godless Granny, Addy Rockhart, The Enixes, Jakari, Elizabeth, Whiskey Tech Fred, and Rick, as well as all the $3 base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too, at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.